Welcome to Expand Your Empire, the podcast where women stop deferring wealth and start building financial power. I'm Amanda Taylor, investor, strategist, and disruptor of outdated money rules. It's time to own your worth, grow your assets, and build a legacy that lasts.
Okay, so I am Gen X, which means I was a latchkey kid, which sounds really nostalgic and cute, like a little key on a lanyard, but what it actually means was here's a key, don't die. No after school programs, no parent waiting at home with a snack, no how was your day, sweetie? Just a key and the expectation that you would figure it out. And we did. We figured it out. We figured out everything because that's what we were taught. You work, you figure it out, you don't complain, you don't ask for help, you handle it. And if you handle it really well, maybe someone notices. Maybe someone says you did a good job. Maybe. So we grew up and we built businesses and we became the person who figures everything out because that's what we know how to do. And so one day I get invited on this retreat, a whole week. Beautiful location, specifically designed for high achieving women to unplug and reconnect and think strategically about their lives and their business. And my first thought was not, oh, how amazing. My first thought was, I cannot go because my business will fall apart without me. And my second thought, the one I didn't say out loud for a really long time, was what kind of person just stops working for a week? A lazy one, that's who. And there it was. All the years of building a career, a business, and a brand, and underneath all of it was still that same Gen X kid with the key around her neck thinking that rest equals lazy, and lazy equals failure, and failure's not an option because nobody's coming to save you, so you better figure it out yourself. Now, I didn't go on the retreat, and I'm not proud of that. But here's what I am proud of. I finally figured out that the belief that made me successful was also the belief keeping me trapped. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. And here's the other thing I figured out. It wasn't just the belief, it was also the fact that I had never actually built the systems that allowed anyone else to do what I do. So even when I wanted to step back, I literally couldn't because nothing existed without me. So it was both the belief and the structure, or lack thereof. Hey guys, I'm Amanda. Welcome to Expand Your Empire. Today we are on my couch in a rainy Southern California, which again, Gen X, I've been told my whole life that never happened here. But today we're going to go there. We're going to talk about why high achieving women, and I am looking at you, my fellow Gen X ladies, can't step away from their businesses. And spoiler alert, it's not just because your team isn't ready. And it's not just because you haven't built the systems. It's because of all of it together. And we're going to untangle it all in the best possible way. So before we get into the meat of all this, I want to say something important. If you are essential to your business right now, it doesn't mean you're bad at business. It doesn't mean you are a control freak. It doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. It means you've built something. You built it in the way most of us build things, by doing whatever it took to get it done. And then somewhere along the way, whatever it took became Amanda does it, or Sarah does it, or whoever you are, you do it. And now here you are. You're making great money, you're running a growing business, and you're completely unable to step away from it for more than a few days without everything getting weird. So today we're going to look at 3 reasons that this happens. And I want to be honest with you about all 3 because they are all real and they all need to be fixed. The first one is the belief system underneath it all. The second one is that structural reality of how most of us build. And the third one is the ego piece that nobody talks about. And then we'll talk about what to actually do about all three, because awareness without action is just expensive therapy. So let's get into it. We'll start with the belief piece because I think this is the one that gets skipped most. Most business podcasts will jump straight to here's how to delegate or here's how to build an SOP. And yes, those things matter. We will get there. But if you don't look at the belief underneath the behavior first, you're just going to delegate and then you'll end up micromanaging everything anyway. You're going to build a system and then not actually use it because stepping back feels wrong, lazy somehow. Sound familiar? So let's name it. Work equals worth. For a lot of us, and yes, I'm talking to my Gen X women here, but this is not exclusive to us. We were raised in homes where work was the metric for everything. Your parents worked hard. They were proud of working hard. Rest was something you earned. And even then, it felt a little suspicious, like, shouldn't you be doing something? Excellence wasn't optional. Asking for help was weakness, and figuring it out yourself, that was the highest form of competence. So you learned early, if you're working, you're valuable. If you're not working, you're lazy, and lazy is the worst thing you can be. So then you build a business, and that belief doesn't just go away. It just got a business license. So now you're running a company with that same operating system underneath everything. And it looks like I just like to stay involved, or I just have high standards, or my clients expect me specifically. But underneath it, it's still that kid with the key thinking, nobody's coming to save you. You better figure it out for yourself. So what this looks like in your business, here's how it shows up practically. You hire someone and then you redo their work. I've done it. And it's not because they did it wrong necessarily, but because it didn't feel done until you touched it. Or you get a notification that a client emailed your team and then you answer it anyway, just to be sure. Someone offers to take something off of your plate and you say, it's fine, I've got it. Even though you absolutely do not have it. Or, like me, you get invited on a retreat designed specifically for people like you, and your first thought is, I can't go because my business needs me. When that real thought underneath is that what kind of person just stops working for a week? That is the belief running the show. And it has to be addressed, not in a let's process your childhood kind of way, but in a let's see it clearly so it stops making decisions for you way. Because here's what that belief is costing you. It's keeping you in your business instead of building it. It's keeping you in delivery instead of strategy. And it's keeping you essential when the goal is to become optional. And that is expensive, not just financially, but in terms of what you're actually building. You're not building a business that you own. You're building a business that owns you. And you deserve better than that. We all do. Okay, so now I want to talk about that structural piece because I don't want you to walk away thinking it's all in your head because it's not. Some of it is very, very real. You literally never built the systems. So here's the honest truth about how most of us build businesses. We start by doing everything ourselves, which it makes sense, right? You're bootstrapping. You are figuring it out. You're the expert. So of course, you're the one delivering. But then the business grows. And instead of pausing to build systems so other people can deliver, we just keep doing it ourselves because it's just faster. It is easier. because we don't have time to train anyone right now. And then 5, 10 years later, everything still lives in your head. Your processes exist, but only as muscle memory that nobody else can access. Your team is good, but they can only go as far as you've shown them. And you've never really shown them everything because you never had time. So when you try to step back, it's not just a belief problem, it genuinely does fall apart because the infrastructure for someone else to hold it doesn't exist yet. And that is a structural problem, not a personal failing. So the 3 things that usually don't exist. When I work with clients who are essential to their business, these are the 3 things that are almost always missing. Number 1, a documented delivery process, not in your head, not, well, everyone kind of knows how we do it, an actual written down step by step so someone who has never worked with you could follow it and deliver something close to what you deliver. Most founders don't have this because when you do it, you don't need documentation, you just know. But your team isn't you and they cannot read your mind. Number 2 is a decision-making framework. When something comes up, what happens? Does your team handle it or do they come to you? And if the answer is they come to you for everything, you haven't given them a framework for making decisions. You've given them tasks, which means they can execute, but they can't think without you. And a business full of people who can execute but can't think is a business that requires you to be present all the time. And number 3 is a training process that goes beyond onboarding. Most founders onboard people and then just throw them in. Here's your login, here's your Slack, figure it out. Which is very Gen X of us. Very, here's a key, don't die. But that is not training. That's hope. And hope is not a business strategy. Real training means showing people not just what to do, but how to think about what they're doing. It means letting them make mistakes in a contained environment, giving feedback that builds capability, not just corrects errors. And most of us don't do that because, again, we don't have the time, which is the cruelest irony of all. We don't have time to train people because we're too busy doing everything ourselves. So let's get to the ego piece, the part nobody talks about. And I am going to talk about it because I think it's the piece missing in almost every conversation about delegation and stepping back. And I don't mean ego in a bad way. I mean it in a very human, very understandable way. So here's the question that lives underneath a lot of founder dependency situations. What if I train someone to do what I do and they do it better than me? What does that say about me? And for women who have built their entire identity around being the best at what they do, that question is terrifying. Because what if you're not the best deliverer? If you're not the most essential person in the room, if the business doesn't actually need you specifically, what are you? I want to sit with that for a second because I think it's more common than anyone admits. We talk about delegation as a practical problem. Like, I just need to find the right person and document the process, and sure, yes, but underneath that practical problem is often a much more personal one. I don't know who I am if I'm not the one doing this. So here's the reframe. What if someone being better at delivery than you is actually the goal? What if finding someone who can do what you do or do it even better means you've built something real, something that doesn't depend on you personally, something that has value beyond your own effort? Because that's what ownership looks like. You are not the best employee in your company. You're the architect of a system that produces great results. And great architects don't do all the construction themselves. They design something so good that other people can build it. And here's the other thing I want you to consider. Maybe your zone of genius isn't the delivery anymore. Maybe it's in the strategy, in the vision, the relationships, the big picture thinking that nobody else in your business can do. And maybe the reason you're still in delivery is because you haven't given yourself permission to fully step into that role yet. Because that role feels less like work. And if it doesn't feel like work, is it really valuable? You see what happened there? The belief again. Always the belief. So here's what I want you to do with this. I want you to ask yourself honestly, is there someone on my team or someone I could hire who could do parts of what I do as well as I do or better? And if the answer is yes, or even maybe, what's actually stopping you from letting them? Is it really that the systems aren't there, or is it that letting go feels like losing something about yourself? Because if it's the second one, that's where the real work is. And that is work worth doing, because on the other side of it is a business that you actually own instead of one that owns you. All right, so we've named all three things: the belief, the structure, and the ego. Now, let's talk about what to do about them. Now, you work on all three simultaneously, not one at a time, because they're all tangled together and they all feed each other. For the belief, I want you to start noticing when the work equals worth, when that is making decisions for you. When you answer an email your team should have answered, pause and ask yourself, am I doing this because it needs me specifically, or because not doing it feels lazy? When you skip the retreat or the vacation or the long weekend, ask yourself, is my business actually going to fall apart? Or does stepping away just feel wrong? You're not trying to fix the belief overnight. You're just trying to see it. Because once you see it, you get to choose whether to act on it or not. That's the difference between being run by a belief or running your business intentionally. Now, for the structure, I want you to pick one thing this week, just one. Maybe it's, again, documenting your onboarding process. Maybe it's writing down how you handle a specific type of client situation, or recording yourself on a delivery call so someone else can learn from it. You don't have to build the whole system in a week. You just have to start. Because right now, everything lives in your head, and that is the problem. Get one thing out of your head and into a document, and then do it again next week. Over time, you'll have something, a real system that someone else can follow. A business that doesn't require you to be present for every single thing. And here's another thing I want you to know. Building these systems doesn't make you less valuable. It makes you more valuable, because now your expertise is transferable. It lives in the business and not just in you. Now, for the ego, have an honest conversation with yourself about where your zone of genius actually is right now. Not where it was when you started, not where it needs to be for the business to survive, where it actually is right now in this season of your business. Because I'd be willing to bet it's not in the day-to-day delivery anymore. I'd be willing to bet it's in strategy, in those relationships, in the vision, in the big picture stuff that nobody else in your business can do. And if that's true, every hour you spend in delivery is an hour you're not spending in your actual zone of genius, which means the business is getting a worse version of you and losing the best version of you at the same time. So here is your permission slip. And I know we Gen X women don't love permission slips because we were raised to not need them, but here it is anyway. You're allowed to build a business that doesn't require you to be in everything. You're allowed to let someone else deliver and be great at it. You're allowed to step into the owner role fully, even if it feels like less work. You're allowed to go on the retreat. I'm going on the next one, by the way. I'm just putting it out there. So I want to bring this home. If you are essential to your business right now, here's what I want you to know. It is the belief and the structure and the ego. It's all three, and it's fixable. But you have to be willing to look at all three honestly, not just the practical stuff, not just the I need better system stuff, the real stuff, the stuff underneath, because that is where the actual freedom lives. So here's your homework. And yes, I'm giving you homework. I usually do, so deal with it. Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, where is the work equals worth belief showing up in my business right now? Number 2, what is that one thing I do regularly that I can document this week so someone else can start learning it? And 3, is there someone on my team or someone I could hire who could do parts of what I do as well or better than me? And what's stopping me from letting them? Write those answers down, not in your phone notes, on actual paper, because there's something about writing it down that makes it real. And next week, we are going to talk about cash flow as a leadership signal, because here's what I have learned. How you manage your cash flow tells you everything about how you're leading your business. And most of us are making cash flow decisions emotionally instead of strategically, and it's costing us more than we realize. Now that's next week. In the meantime, if any of this episode hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tag me on Instagram or LinkedIn. And if you've been thinking about getting more involved, we are doing some profit acceleration diagnostics, because what we talked about today, the belief, the structure, the ego, yes, it all shows up in your numbers. And inside of our profit diagnostic, we look at those numbers and we see exactly where you're leaking profit. And it's not just in the fixed things, it's in the soft things too. The ego, the belief. That link is in the show notes. So sign up for that. It's totally free. Takes about 45 minutes. We'll sit down, you and I, one-on-one, and we'll just see a couple of areas that we can dig into where we can find some extra profit in your business. We can talk about what's holding you back in those areas and see what's going to set you forward. All right. I will see you next week. You've got this. Now, go figure something out, but like strategically this time. I'm kidding. Kind of.
If this lit something up, share it, review it, and get in the room. Join the Expand Your Empire community and start turning wisdom into wealth. You're not too late, and you're not doing this alone.